Good morning. Hi, I'm Sylvia Jacobs. I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska, February 22, 27. And I have two brothers, Max and Eddie. My parents came from Russia. Both of them came from Hordishk, about 75 miles south of Kiev. They knew each other when they were growing up, and my father had a beautiful voice, and he wanted to come to America to learn to be an opera singer. He came in 1906. My mother was back home, and she was a dressmaker. She was a young lady, and she had two sisters, mother and a father. Zlatato was her mother's name, and Isrul was her father's name. My two aunts were Goldie and Esther. Esther was married to Izzy. The two girls and my mother and my father, my grandfather, came to America in 1910. They came through Montreal down to Lincoln because Ruth Cohen Daniels was living in Lincoln. No, just the Cohens. And they came and settled in Lincoln. My mother stayed there until 1918 when she decided to go to New York City to get my father and marry him. She waited a long time for him, but she had to work, and she worked at Miller and Payne and Ben Simons in the dress department. She went to New York dressed like a lady with a plumed hat and high button shoes. When she got off the train, they thought a lady from Nebraska would be an Indian, but she wasn't. She was a beautiful lady. My father met her. I don't know how they communicated that she was coming, but she did. And she saw him, and they got married about a month later. She brought him back to Lincoln. There, she had the three children. He was a feed salesman, a feed store, and a grocery store. And my grandfather was a peddler on the horse and wagon. And my other aunt, her husband went and was a junk dealer. And my younger aunt, Aunt Goldie, married a man that had a grocery store in Lincoln. We lived on Randolph Street. My mother lived there from 1919 until 1950. They had the three children there. Four, Leon, Eddie, Max, and me. My Aunt Esther had three boys, Louis, Oscar, and Elmer. I went to school, Elliott, Irving, and Lincoln High. Graduated in 1945. We have our class reunion every 5 years, so I see a lot of people. My children, Ivan, is named for my grandfather, Isrul. Mike is named for my husband's favorite uncle, Mechel. Elaine is named for my father's mother, Yetta. Sam is the only one named for Bob's father, Sam. There are three others, Scott, Stuart, and Stephen, but Sam's the only one that will carry on the name. And Larry is the only one named for my father, Leb. We have 10 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren, 2 granddaughters. We have traveled quite a bit of our lives the last 24 years, and we've seen a lot of the countries. We've enjoyed life. I can go on.
Okay, my name is Robert Jacobs. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, November 21, 1922. And as far as schooling, I went to University of Wisconsin, got there in 41, and graduated in 1944, a summation of 3 years, a mechanical engineer. They didn't have any graduations during the war, so I was immediately inducted into the Navy as a common swabby, so to speak. They seen my education. They sent me on to midshipman school. And before I got there, I was licked. Guys who had better grades than me, I carried about a 3-point average. So some of the fellows were higher than that, flunked out of midshipman school. How was I going to get through midshipman school? However, I did come out as a so-called second lieutenant, the lowest rank officer in the Navy. And after I served in the Navy 2.5 years and got out in 46, the latter part of 46. Went to Chicago to make use of my engineering. I worked as a design engineer for General Electric for almost a year, but got so bored of being cooped up inside that I quit. And decided to visit an aunt of mine in Lincoln, Nebraska. At that time, in 1947, Lincoln only had about 80,000 people. And I liked the atmosphere, and about the second week I was there, I met Mr. Knighton in his scrap place, and he wanted me to come visit his daughter that night, Monday night. So when I got through whatever I was doing and driving the truck and picking up scrap around the surrounding territory, I went down to visit his house. Lord behold, he wasn't there. But his daughter and his wife was there. So that's the first time I laid eyes on Sylvia. So going on and off and on, and not many Jewish girls in Lincoln, so we dated. But I would like to back up a minute. My uncle, Mr. Shine, who was in a hide and fur dealer in Lincoln, had me over for supper. And we had a real nice Jewish supper. But all of a sudden he started dictating to me at the age of 26 years old that you shouldn't intermarry. I, inasmuch, told him, you can go fly a kite. I'll marry whom I please, in a nice way. Well, anyway, that was the end of the dinner. Well, I mean, we left on unpleasant terms, but I told him I'll marry whom I please. And I got to dating Sylvia. We've had our arguments up and down, and finally I wake up about 6 months later. I truly loved her. So we proposed in 47. I proposed in 47, and we got married November 27, 1948. So that will be, this coming year will be 57 years. So it must have worked out okay. We have 5 children. Ivan, Mike, Elaine, Sam, and Larry. And I worked very hard working around. I worked for my father-in-law, but it didn't work out. Went back on a truck. However, in 1959, I almost got killed head-on by a milk truck near Aurora, Nebraska. So then I decided, well, this is not getting me anywhere. Work 4 years, get 4 years older, buy another truck, and just going from hand to mouth. And this gentleman in Columbus, Nebraska was trying to sell a scrap yard, so I went up there, and after about 6 months, I bought this place. I didn't even have $5,000 to put a deposit on this scrap yard. Mr. Hill said he'd borrow me the money. Took me 3 years to pay back $5,000 at 6%. First couple of years working in my own scrap yard, I couldn't see how I was making any progress. However, my bookkeeper told me, look around you. Do you see all that inventory? Whatever you buy, you don't always sell. You ship 80% of it, but there's 10, 20% left over, and all this stuff is accumulating. Well, pretty soon I managed to buy get a few industrial accounts, and after 4 or 5 years I could see where I was gaining. And we started out with 12 men working for me. And as Signe was always bugging me about my scrapyard and et cetera, et cetera. It was only 3 acres. And finally in 1972, I had the opportunity to buy this industrial tract. It's over there on the south side of Baylands. It was only 10 acres, and I contested with him. I won all 27 acres, and he says, no, no, no. I says, I need 27 acres. Well, they finally conceded to sell me 27 acres. I didn't have the money at $500 an acre to buy it all, but I hit upon a scheme. I'll divide these 27 in half. I will pay for the first half with a guarantee 1 year later I would buy the other half. It was sold, and that's the way I owned 27 acres, 1972. And from then, things start going up, and I became prosperous. And in 1993, I sold the yard, had about 30 employees, to my son at a very, very nominal price, because I was happy that one of my own people wanted to buy it, the scrapyard, rather than sell it. So Sam now owns a scrapyard, and I'm retired. And we have traveled, my wife and I, all over the world. 54 countries since 1983. You name it, I've probably been to that country. My sports are bowling, swimming, reading, and traveling locally to my 5 children in this vicinity. As she said, Denver, Minneapolis, Oskaloosa, Kansas City, and then our second boy, Sam, now owns a scrapyard, but he doesn't have any children. However, as my wife stated, we have 10 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren.
About your parents?
If you wish to know about my parents, my dad was born in Russia. My mother was born in Russia. She comes from Barbaros, which is the same city that Mrs. B comes from. It's a little, well, it's not a little, it's predominantly Jewish, about 80 miles from Minsk. I think it's southeast. We didn't get to Barbaros, and my dad comes from more of the northern part of Russia. He got married in 1906, and he had served in the Russian army. He was drafted, and strangely enough, he had a girlfriend who waited for him. After he served in Russia, in 1895, the Japs captured him and made him fight the Chinese. Well, finally, there was the Chinese and Russians were fighting, and it was Theodore Roosevelt who made the peace treaty, and the war ended in 1905. Well, my dad was discharged. He comes from a large family, and his older brother owned everything on the farm. So he just got married in 06. So he
Why?
said, in 05, and the child and my sister Rose was born in 07 in Russia. So rather than fighting with his older brother, he decided he'd move to America, which he did. And in 1907, my mother almost lost her oldest child, Rose. traveling across the ocean, but she survived. So then my dad he went to
Sioux City.
Sioux City, where my mother had an aunt named Robbins, who had a little manufacturing plant. My dad got a horse and wagon, went around the country, and Sioux City didn't like it. It had too many hills. So he moved to Milwaukee. Why Milwaukee? It's so similar to Russia, the climate and the area around it. And he worked in the packing plant for a couple of years, and then got himself a horse and wagon and went around the country buying rags, and et cetera, on a horse and wagon. And then over the years, we have 7 children. The girl, Rose. The next one was a boy, Louis. The next one was Nathan. The next one was another boy, Frank. Well, Frank survived during 1916, I guess, with this terrible flu. They didn't think he'd survive, but he did. But consequently, he didn't have much brain material, so to speak. And he died as a young man, about 40 years old. Then after Frank, there was Saul in 1916, and then I came along in 22. And my mom thought that was the end of it when she found herself pregnant with my sister in 1924. She didn't know what she can do, and my sister was born Sylvia. But today, there's only 2 of us left, me and my younger sister, whose name is Sylvia and who lives in Florida presently.
She had 3 kids.
Sylvia had 3 children, whom are all married. Her husband was an attorney named Walensky, and he died about 12 years ago. However, her 3 children are all lawyers. The girl now is deceased. There was a boy,
Neil and Scott.
Neil, Scott, and Jeannie. And Jeannie died about 2 years ago. Well, I don't know where else you want to go on.
I would like to hear you talk a little bit about your first coming to Columbus.
Well, when he bought the business, we came, and he asked me if I wanted to work in the office or stay home. I said I'd rather work in the office because I don't like cleaning. And so I did that and worked with him for 32 years. We came here with 4 children. 4 years later, we had Larry. I had a housekeeper, a Lutheran lady, a wonderful lady called Edna Went. So when we would say, Mrs. Went home, she'd go home over the weekend. And she learned to keep kosher, keeping our dishes separated. And she helped us with our Passover. She went to all of our occasions when the kids had their bar mitzvahs, which we had 4 bar mitzvahs and 1 bat mitzvah in Lincoln. And she always was a good lady. The kids liked her. Sam, they were like fire and water, but they got along. The kids went to school across the street at West Park School. They went to the junior high school and went to Columbus High. Everybody knew them. And Ivan was a student manager from 9th grade to senior high. Mike was in sports, baseball, basketball, and so was Larry. Sam didn't care for sports. He liked to work at the scrapyard and drive cars. He helped teach Elaine how to drive. She'd always have a junk car down at the scrapyard. Sam would come up behind her and bump her, and they'd have fun that way, but she learned how to drive real good. All my kids learned how to drive. Because I tell people when they had their bar mitzvah training, when they're 12 years old, we drive to Lincoln, I drive in, they drive home. 12 years old. But they're all good drivers, even my daughter. Even though she doesn't think she is, but she is. We've enjoyed living in Columbus. We belong to organizations. Bob has been a Mason and a Shriner since, 58 for the Mason and 68. He used to drive a motorcycle from 1968 till 1979. And they did wonderful, and I take pictures, and we go to different states to have competition. And he has been very, very good about that. And now he drives a 69 Caddy limousine that has a license plate, tired and retired. And he also has a 35 Chevy with suicide doors. He doesn't drive that too often, but that's parked right now. We belong to Eastern Star. I belong to VFW, Seroptimus, AARP, Daughters of the Nile. I keep busy with all of them. We enjoy our summers here, our year here, but we keep busy. You have anything?
Bob, what do you do to keep busy?
Oh, God. As I just said, you've seen me in my work clothes. Came from taking care of my dog and 2 cats down the scrapyard, and do my own lawn work, and also do some lawn work down at the scrapyard all along the roadway. Do a lot of traveling to various organizations with the Shriners and the Seroptimus and Eastern Star, and read a lot. I can never find enough to read. I learned one thing after graduating university: your education has just got started. Don't forget it. And read books, magazines, and newspapers. Have a stack almost like 8 inches, the end of the week, of periodicals that have come into the house to try to read everything, and do a lot of traveling. And I go down to the Y 3 times a week and exercise every other day if I don't swim. Swimming's a favorite sport of mine. And I've been swimming ever since I was 8 years old. I still love to swim and exercise. In fact, they had me do some physical work in Minnesota Sunday
In Denver.
in Denver, and they were surprised all the things they have me to do. The
They
trainer
still
was
do.
just shocked.
Our grandson.
He was shocked. No, I didn't say anything. They didn't realize that the shape I was in.
Bob, tell me a little bit about being in the scrap metal business from the time you started till today.
It's a different world today. Everything is done electronically on the website.
Physical.
There is no hard physical work anymore. Everything is done by machines. I can remember we used to have to load scrap by hand, and then with the old-fashioned drag lines with little bitty magnets. As I recall, it would take me 5 hours to load 1 carload of scrap by rail. They do it in a half hour today. And I would load 60 ton in 4 or 5 hours. They load 80 ton in a half hour. The whole business has changed with these big machines, and then complain about hard work. I don't think they know what hard work is.
You started down underneath the viaduct?
Yeah, we started down there with 6 employees, and today I think there's about 32 employees, and it's very efficient. You wouldn't even recognize it as a scrapyard. It's so neat with trees and gravel and cement. They now have a shredder that'll take a car. In 1 minute, it's in little bitty pieces on the other end. Now the car will weigh anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 pounds. It'll shred it up.
It goes different ways.
They ship an awful car amount of scrap. Like I may have shipped maybe 8 to 10,000 a month. They ship about 50,000 a month today. It's an amazing amount of scrap that comes in that runs through those machines. It's a different world today. It's not like it was in,
50s and 60s.
yeah.
Now, when they go out for a load, they have empty trailers with a semi pulling it. They come back with a full load, 2 or 3 semis going out every morning someplace, either with a load, unloading it in Omaha or someplace else, and bringing back a load. And we have so many trailers, I think they've gone through the alphabet twice. They have lugger trucks that go leaving off a container to be filled up by the factory, and they take an empty trailer, an empty lugger, put it down, pick up that one. They're always going down the highway. We always see our blue tractors with the red trailers.
Well, I will tell you a little funny incident. About 3 years ago, I won't mention the name, came over wanting to buy Sam's scrapyard. And they sat and had dinner and everything and offered Sam a price. And Sam turned around, I'll tell you what, he says, I'll buy you out. And they own about 15 scrap yards, all in this area. And so since they put up the shredder, the competition, we have a lot of competition. But if you are ahead of your competition, you'll succeed.
Where do you get your scrap years ago versus today?
Well, we used to depend on the rural trade coming in, but today that just pays the insurance business. That's about all.
Factories.
We have industrial counts 200 miles around, and we have men going out every day driving a semi-trailer empty and backing up to the plant and picking up 20 ton and driving back to our plant. And you can imagine all the commercial accounts, that's our bread and butter. You don't depend on local trade, although, like my wife said, is still your customer, be nice.
And Sylvia, tell me a little bit about holidays at the Jacobs home.
Well, for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we go to Lincoln. But for here, we've always had Passover up here for 40 years. And just 5 years ago, I stopped having it. But when we had Passover, we would have 20 to 25 people each time. And we would invite people from Columbus, either friends or foes or teachers, ministers. One year we had a father that had married Sam and Sue, Father Joe, and he enjoyed himself very, very much. We've had teachers, and we've had friends of the kids, and we've had the Jewish people here in Columbus, the Kavich, the Kaplans, the Bordies. The Levines were never here, but we always talked to them. And Max and Eleanor and the kids would always come up, and Danny would come from New York. But we'd have a wonderful time. The Bordies would help me cook. And cooking wasn't bad. It was cleaning the house. But we enjoyed it. It was a family affair, and we had wonderful times. But now I'm getting tired, so we go to Larry, because I've said the young people should do their own tradition, having their children there and learning. So we go to Denver. We've been to St. Paul. We've been to Dayton, Ohio. Everybody does something different, but it's wonderful to see and wonderful to enjoy.
Well, you celebrate the holidays all around here. You haven't made a Passover in over 5 years.
That's right. But it's nice to have. But when you get older, I think the children should start their own tradition and enjoy it. Okay, I want to talk about my children now. Ivan is the oldest. He's born in 1950. He was married for 25 years. He's divorced now. He has 2 children, Aaron and David. Aaron works in St. Paul, and David is in Denver. He's a personal trainer and does very well. He had a scrapyard for over 25 years, and the city wanted to buy him out, so they bought him out, and now he sells new equipment and used equipment, and he travels. Mike is in Overland Park, Kansas. He has a business called Royal Metals, and he sells new steel, used steel, ornamental iron, and has 3 children. Mike has been very fortunate to have a wife that teaches dancing, Pilates, yoga, and children's dancing and ballroom dancing. They have 3 beautiful children. Elaine is over in Iowa, lives on a farm by Hedrick, Iowa, between Oskaloosa and Ottumwa. She has 3 children and her husband Jim. He's a hog raiser. He has 2 hog confinements. And she was a teacher for 19 years, but she retired about a year and a half ago and helps him with the computer and with the farm business. Sam owns our business here in Columbus, Columbus Metal. Him and his wife Sue work, and they have a dog, a little dog called Cosmo now. They lost their Skylar about 2 years ago. They have a very beautiful home, and Sam works very, very hard and has a very successful business. We enjoy it, and his birthday's going to be real soon, so we're going to enjoy that with him. Larry is in Denver. He's our optometrist. We go there for our glasses and have examined twice a year. We see 2 grandchildren there, and like I said, we go there for Passover because I told him he's got to start his own tradition. We enjoy it, and we see cousins there, Anita Daniels Churches and Phyllis Williams, and I even talked to Hazel Krantz there. Like I said about my grandchildren, Aaron and David are Ivan's 2 boys. Aaron works in St. Paul, I think in real estate right now, not in advertising. David is a personal trainer, does very well out there in Denver. In Kansas City, Mike's 3 kids. Mindy was a teacher. She may go back to it. She had a little girl, Maya, great-granddaughter. She's a year and a half old. Then Joe is out in California. He is advertising in the Greek fraternities and sororities and does advertising for them. Robin is just graduating from Madison, Wisconsin as an occupational therapist. We're going there for her graduation. Elaine's 3 kids. Ben is married and going to graduate school to be a teacher. Suzanne works in Iowa City. She's doing very well. And Joel is over at Indianapolis working for the Caterpillar Company. Larry's 2 children are just 7 and 10, and they're still going to school, playing soccer and baseball and basketball and football, and they're doing very well. The 2 great-granddaughters, one is in Eau Claire, Wisconsin with Ben, who's going to school. His wife is April, and Mindy has the other one, a year and a half old.
Sylvia was brought up with an Orthodox family, and so was mine. And Sylvia still keeps kosher. She gets her meats and then etc. out of Omaha. Sometimes we pick it up. Sometimes she has it sent out of Omaha. But we still keep kosher. We try to observe all the holidays. She's pretty strict on following the Jewish holidays. So, but when we eat out, well, that's a different story, but we will keep kosher in the house. And that's the way she was raised, and that's what turns her on. That's what she's happy. I don't object.
Oh, one year we had the Shriners here, and they wanted to have kosher things. So naturally, corned beef. Well, what kind of dip can you have when you have kosher? So somebody told me, not jalapeno, eggplant. And so we made eggplant, and we made other things, but we didn't have sour cream. But they all enjoyed a kosher picnic, and it's nice to know that they like to do those things. And here in Columbus, I have given talks for over 40 years on Jewish customs and how we observe things. So all the Catholic schools know me, all the churches know me. The only church I haven't been to is the Baptist. But I've been to the Federated Church, which is Presbyterian, the Methodist Church, and the Trinity Lutheran. I was there every year to talk around Hanukkah time, and the children in school knew my children were Jewish, and at Hanukkah, when the Hanukkah started, they'd always call, "What did you get tonight?" Because they know we get get a gift every night. We light a candle, and when I tell people we have 8 nights and 5 kids, how do you manage that? And I says they learn to share things. But we enjoyed it, and I always knew where my kids sat in school, because you know they always have a name or something in front of their desk. They'd always have a menorah. So I knew where they sat in school, and the teachers liked that. So I've enjoyed talking, and children nowadays, or young people, they call me Mrs. Jacobs. They know who I am because of my kids.
Well, Sylvia has done a lot for the community. She became Queen Isabella for all the things she has accomplished and done for the community in Columbus. In fact, I could go back when she was in Lincoln. Mr. Hill said, if I had a woman in our office like Sylvia, I could double my scrap business. Sylvia has that type of personality. But I'll tell you a little incident. We were married for about 2 years, and I was traveling with my own truck all over within 100 miles of Lincoln, buying scrap, mostly batteries and hides. I come home after a day and a half on the road, and most of the time she had a cooked supper, but every now and then she went to some organization in Lincoln and I had a cold supper. Well, I said, I'll fix this. I went outside of our Chevrolet 1948, removed the distributor, and said, I'd like to see you home when I get home and have a hot meal. 4 days later, my car was still there, but she was gone. And she came home. I says, how did you manage? Oh, I got from my dad's car, and I went to my meeting. So then and there I decided it ain't no use. Let her do her own thing, and everybody will be happy.
Max came out of the Army in 1953. We had been living in Atlanta, Georgia, 50 and 51, and my dad asked Bob to come back to be in the business. When we came back, and Mike was born in 52, Debbie was born in 52, and about a year later, when Max got out of the Army, Mr. Hill said he only wants 1 out of each family, not 2. So that's when Bob left and Max came into the business, and he was in business up until about 6 years ago. Then he retired. He was always with the synagogue, and a director and a trustee. Even today they call him when something goes wrong, because Max knows what has to be done. When they were younger, they always had holidays at their house that we would go in to celebrate with them. The children grew up together. When we moved in 1960, we moved up here. Eleanor helped me decorate the house and told me different things to put in there, like my Corningware stove, so I wouldn't have to clean it so often. And they always came up for our holidays, for Thanksgiving, for Passover. We enjoyed life together. He was a good brother. We traveled a couple times together, went through the Panama Canal, and we traveled to Europe when we had the BIR over there. He's always been a busy guy. He loved to sing. He sang like my father. And that's where Danny came in and got his tenor voice. Elaine plays the piano and she sings, but those are the only 2 that have the musical ability. They enjoyed life in Lincoln, and Max has always been a staunch supporter of the synagogue. He feels like he's still Orthodox, but he's got to be conservative now. He does allow women on the pulpit. He goes to Texas to see Debbie quite often for the holidays, but if not, she comes up and cooks for him here in Lincoln. What else?
No, I don't say that. He's very religious, He'll probably go to services on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, always.
He survived a brain
Brain tumor.
which was very lucky.
And he has a nice lady that helps him out, Gail Wishnow. So
He's not. Well, there's quite a difference between he and I. He is very social. People love him, and I'm too busy trying to make ends meet and conniving to succeed. And today, after you've achieved all your endeavors, you just sit back and do what I ever please. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. This is the way it is.
we always liked to travel, but we didn't travel. Well, first of all, we started off in 1976 when 17,000 Nebraskans went to Hawaii to watch a football game. And we had a wonderful time. Bob always says that he enjoyed the game the first quarter, but after that he was watching the girls. I kept hitting him in the shoulder, watch the game. He says, no, I want to watch the girls going up and down the aisle. But in 1983, we started with Max and Eleanor going to the BIR.
That isn't what you said to me.
I said, watch the game.
She poked me in the ribs. After all, we were 20 points ahead of Hawaii in the first 10, 20 minutes, and I figured, what's the sense of watching it? So I watched the beautiful young girls going up and down selling popcorn and sodas and everything. And you take these girls at 18 years old in skirts, they were beautiful. So she poked me in the ribs, pay attention to the game.
Okay.
That would work for 5 minutes.
Back to our trip. I've got a list of all the places we've been to. In 1983, Eleanor got a trip to Israel, and from there we went over to Italy. We saw quite a bit in Israel because we went on a tour with a group from Dayton, Ohio that had started a daycare center there, and they wanted to see it. And it was beautiful. They named it for the lady that donated all the
I
money.
remember Jesse something.
Something like that. But we saw a tank factory, we saw the hospital, we saw many things that tourists don't always see. Then we went to Italy and got on with another tour coming down from Europe. We started in Venice, went down to Florence, to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and to Rome. And the following year we went to England and Scotland for a BIR meeting in London. We in 86, we went to the Netherlands, France, Germany, Switzerland, and then down to Spain. We went to Barcelona. In 88, we went to Japan, China. In China, we saw Beijing, Shanghai, Hong Kong, down to Bangkok, and then down to Singapore. Our friend Don Whitefoot, from our neighbor, was from Becton Dickinson, building their plant over there. He was there for 2 years. We saw him at the end of his tour. And in 89, we went to Australia, the Fiji Islands, and New Zealand. That was beautiful. We'd like to go back there again. In 90, we went to Alaska and Canada. We had a tour that we started in Anchorage, went up to Fairbanks, over to Tok, where they teach you how to use a dog sled. And that's when they had the fires up there. And when we left, they closed the highway. We went through Canada, Whitehorse, Dawson. We saw where Sergeant Preston and his dog Yukon King were at, and then down to Juneau. In 92, we were at the Cayman Islands with Jim Nissen for his birthday. Then we went to Vancouver and India and Nepal. In 93 was Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. In 90, and that was beautiful because we saw the land where our parents came from. In 94, we went to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, and the Galapagos Islands. In 95, we went to South Africa, Zimbabwe, and had a picture safari in Kenya. In 96, we went to Israel again, Jordan, and then flew to Greece to see Athens, and saw Istanbul, Turkey. Then went to, in 97, went to Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Norway. And on the map, when we were looking at the Russia places, we saw Neiden, N-E-I-D-E-N, on there, up on the northern post of northeast of Finland. In 98, we went through the Panama Canal. We went to Aruba, Colombia, the Panama Canal, and up the coast of Mexico to Los Angeles. Max and Gail were with us, and we rented a car in Los Angeles, drove to Las Vegas to see Ann and Bernie, then we flew home. At that time, we had a price of $108 per person to fly home, so we took it. In 99, we went to New England tour. We thought we'd try the United States. We started out in Boston and saw the Plymouth Rock, went up through Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, came down to New York City. In 2000, we went to Egypt and Morocco. Very interesting countries. Over there was in Egypt where they have a house, when they build a cement house, they always have rebars going up because when their children get married, they build another house on top. So that's where their kids live. And in Egypt, the women wear black if they're married, but in Morocco, they can wear colored clothing. In 2001, we went to Ireland and Scotland. We toured all the way around Ireland, into Scotland, and down through Wales and back to Ireland. In 2002, we went across Canada, from Nova Scotia to Montreal, Toronto, flew over to Calgary, took a bus to, I can't think of the name, starts with a K, and then we got on the train, the Rocky Mountain Limited, from Canada down to Vancouver, and in Seattle we got on Amtrak down to Sacramento, back to Omaha. And then in 2003, in March, we went to Cuba. Only 6 couples. We had an Israeli tour guide, and we went there and saw the Jewish people that were left, which weren't very many. We had a very interesting time, but we know Castro has his thumb on everybody, because they could not come into the hotel if you didn't work there. We saw 3 synagogues, an Orthodox, a conservative, and a Lubavitcher. And we had a nice time, but at the Lubavitcher there's a lay person, and they sang off-key, and so did everybody else. But it was interesting, and we saw a Jewish family in, I won't say it right, Centrifugo, and a little boy was going to have his bar mitzvah. He was wearing a white t-shirt with Nebraska across the chest of it. So I had to tell him about us living in a smaller town than he's in, how my children had to go to Lincoln to learn their bar mitzvah. And that is so far what we have traveled to.
Well, my oldest son, he says, Dad, after you visit some country, something serious always happens. And like when we went to England in '83, nothing happened. But when we went to China, a year later, they had Tiananmen Square. When we went to Alaska, at that day, later, they had those fires over there. It seemed like every country I went, something happened after we left it. And my son says, how come? How come these fires? How come something, explosion happens? I says, son, in '83, I didn't know how to do it, but I've learned how since then, and ever since then, something happens after I leave that foreign country.
I would just like to say a few words to my grandchildren and children if they're watching. We love you, and we've enjoyed being with you at your home, and whenever we talk to you on the phone, we enjoy that. But always remember where you came from, where you're going, and what we have done in between. We've tried to teach different things, maybe not too well, but we give you our love, and we hope that you'll enjoy life to the fullest and enjoy whatever you do. That's the main thing. You have to enjoy it.
Well, many times you may not think I do not love my 5 children or my grandchildren. I learned a long time ago, you cannot show favoritism. One is better than the other. Even if you do love them, you better not show it. I learned that from my parents. And we love each child dearly, and we have tried to raise them. And I have a philosophy. That child at the age of 12 or 13 should survive without his parents, not tied down to their parents' apron strings. They should be able to get along in this world without the help of their parents. And now all these kids are successful. I've helped them with their education, every one, even some of the grandchildren. And to me, education means an awful lot. And it's not the education, it's what you do with it after you leave school. I mean, I've seen college graduates putting gas in my car, college graduates. I've had a lot of education. People don't realize it. I mean, the Navy sent me to 4 universities after as a officer. By that time, most of the war was over. So people don't realize how much education I have. Maybe not the way I speak it or look, but I've been there.